going live now.
And you make me co-host?
Yes.
Cool.
And I think that we're live right now. So hopefully that is all working. We'll just give it a couple seconds, as I say in every. Got Terry is already here. Terry. But okay, we're gonna get started. Hey, you guys, it is a new year in the ASC. We are on our 41st webinar. We are doing things a little bit differently in the ASC this year because we wanted to make sure that as part of the ASC, we have all of these different areas of our lives that we focus on and we plan to up level for the following year. And so this year we are going to be crafting themes because every month we have a different theme or focus. We're going to actually call them focus from now on. And the first month of this year, January, we're focusing on career because it's something that all of us have to think about. We all have to make an income somehow to support all of the other areas in life. And so with that, we have been having some amazing conversation in the ASC about careers, whether it's, if you are a person who is working a 9-to-5, working for somebody else, or if you are a solopreneur, we're kind of hitting career from all different angles. But today we have a special guest with us that I am so excited to introduce, and we're going to deep dive into the concept of leadership. And I'm just super, super excited. She is a newly published author of the awesome book, Unicorn Leadership. If you have not gotten this book, you must buy it on Amazon or any online stores. And her name is Ann Witherspoon. I'm just really quickly going to read the bio on the back of her book because it's so well written. She's a C-level leader who has spent the past 25 years working in corporate America, learning from the best and the worst. She has multiple credentials and expansive leadership experience, which is why I'm so excited we have her here with us today. And she lives in Texas with her husband and 2 children. She loves to run, read, write, and travel. And she is freaking amazing. Ann Witherspoon. Yay!
Yay!
Woohoo! So excited. And we've also got the rest of the ASC crew. I don't know, Gary, if you want to just bring everybody on to really quickly say hi.
Hello.
Yay!
Hi.
And there's Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca.
See you.
Everyone's here, you guys. So we'll all be here to kind of help facilitate the conversation. I will kind of lead with all of the questions to just make sure that we cover everything. I've had, people pull some questions that they really wanted to hear from you. So I'm excited to weave that in. I know that we've got some people who are watching live. I already said hi to Terry. Let's see if anybody else is here. Not yet, but, or at least they haven't said anything, but we're super excited. And for anybody who is watching and is wondering, like, what is the ASC? We are the Accountability Success Circle. You can check us out at accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. But now let's dive into some of the stuff that we want to talk about. I really want to get Ann, your take on leadership and what is unicorn leadership. Like, I know that we hear a lot about leadership in the context of work, especially if you're managing people. And we're going to talk all about that. But I think that there's more to leadership than what you see in career. So we're going to just talk about the career aspects. And then we'll also talk about how leadership still also shows up, not just at work. So, and maybe I'm going to stop talking for just a second. Have you, tell us a little bit about your journey that kind of got you here and kind of has brought you to really diving into the concept of leadership. And
Okay, great. Well, I've been, like I said, in corporate America for many years, learning from the best and the worst. And over the course of that time, I, began to manage teams. So at one point, I had a team of myself and one other person. And then, it varied over the years, but I grew to manage a team of about 200. And so with each position or team, there were just all these lessons, to be learned. And I continued to grow and continued to learn. And along the way, I really, really realized I love to lead teams. I love to be part of a team. I love to just the whole energy that a team provides. And as far as what unicorn leadership is, I believe it's number one, focusing on taking steps to reach your potential. It all starts with you as a leader. I don't think you can effectively lead teams without starting with yourself. And then it's about helping the team members realize, recognize, and reach their full potential. And then it's just ongoing learning. We never arrive. We've never learned it all. So there's always something more to learn.
Yeah. I love that.
And over the years, I would, I get pretty passionate about things, and people would say to me, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I thought, I want to. And then one day it was just time to write a book.
It was, and I got to see that whole journey from start to finish. So that was really, really fun, putting that book together. So how would you say, unicorn leadership differs from what people might perceive as just leadership in general?
Well, I think there's some definitions of leadership, right? Which is you're leading the way, you're setting the vision, and you're just charging ahead. For me, it really starts with the team. Like I said, teamwork is so powerful. And that includes every single individual on the team, is different. And it's about starting to get to know each and every person on the team as an individual. So what makes them unique? What do they like to do? Where did they grow up? How did that shape them? Just everything that makes them a unique individual. They have something to add to the team that can only make the team stronger. So I really believe it starts with getting to know each individual, to the degree they want you to know them, of course, but really just digging in, finding commonalities, but finding differences, because both are so powerful when you put it together in a team.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know to what extent Gary and Rebecca have experienced this, but I come from a situation where I actually left, working in an organization at the expense of, or, as a result of somebody that I would maybe say wasn't being a unicorn leader, in a sense. And I think that, that it made me realize how much, being a leader can make or break somebody's experience working on a team. And I know that you said you also learn from the best and the worst. Not that there are people who are watching this and saying, I'm a great leader, and not being a great leader, but I think that there are, and I think this is a good question, not to look at from the leader side, but also from somebody who is working for a leader. What would you say are some characteristics of somebody who might not be the unicorn leader that they can be?
Well, probably the first thing that comes to mind is words not matching action. So I can think back to a time of when we had a new leader show up, and this was many years ago. But so she comes in, we're welcoming her, and she says, people are our most important asset. And we're like, oh, yay, this is going to be great. Such a great leader. So exciting. And then, in the coming weeks and months, she would say, why are you so stupid?
Mm.
What are you people doing? And I'm like, oh, I thought we were your most important asset. But she didn't treat us like that, right?
Yeah.
So anytime you have lots of words, because anybody can say lots of words, it's really about, do you believe and are you showing action that supports your words?
Mm.
So to me, the two have to align, or, it makes you really question that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets to the heart of what makes teams successful, which is psychological safety, right? It's trust. I mean, lots of research has been done that shows psychological safety is key. And so if you have a leader that's constantly undermining your trust or the trust of the team, they're not consistent or their words don't match their actions, you can't believe in that person, right? And you start to question not only that person, but you start to question the mission of the team you're on or the mission of the company you work for, because you're getting such this inconsistent message.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. So words matching, actions, psychological safety. Is there any other red flags? Gary and Rebecca, I don't know if you guys have had situations where you've worked with not so great leaders. I know that one of I can relate to the words not matching actions scenario. And I think even just as a manager myself, I've had situations where I thought that maybe I wasn't a good or I wasn't leading well because I was more, back in my younger years, micromanaging, which I, feel bad about now, but not really being able to empower people who are working for me to do their work. What do you have to say about that?
I was going to say I can relate to all of that, and I feel like a lot of those bad leaders that I've had, they have like outdated like sort of knowledge and wisdom. To give everyone the benefit of the doubt, I don't think anyone would go into an organization thinking like, I'm going to be the most difficult person to work with. They just have followed wisdom that don't stand up to the test of time. I know I had this bad boss again, with the whole thing of integrity, having your words match your actions. They would say one thing, to us, and then, you would see them doing something completely different. Or, they would essentially, we would do all this hard work and then they would take the credit, and they don't really care that we're seeing this, and, and it's making us demotivated. So yeah, I feel like it's just, outdated.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because people want recognition for the job and the hard work that they do, right? And so you want to make sure that you're giving them that recognition. And that goes back to appreciation and being grateful. I've worked on teams and currently work on a team where we start certain meetings with a round of gratitude. And, that can be for one another, that could be for something that's happening in your life. But I think poor leaders are not grateful for the team and are not grateful for the efforts that each individual is, contributing. I think not listening to your team, that's a big red flag too. I think in the past, I've done things called process improvement roundtables, where I invited every single person on my team to come in and tell me whatever was on their mind. And I meant it. I'm like, if it's about me, if I need to stop doing something or start doing something, I want you to tell me. If it's about whatever, a policy that's outdated or stupid or painful, like, just come to this meeting and tell me what's on your mind. And that was huge. And we did that year after year. And my best memory of that was this one brave individual told me that I was a bottleneck in this process and that it was, a stress for him and it was dragging down the whole turnaround time of this process. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for telling me. And I immediately changed the process. So I think listening to your team and taking action is huge. And a lot of leaders just want to think they have all the answers. No one has all the answers, never.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think listening to your team is really, really powerful.
Yeah. And Rebecca chimed in and said a checked ego is very, very important. I think too. Yeah, I've had situations where I don't know if leaders have been open to feedback the same way that they were giving them, which I guess kind of leads me into the next topic of, how do you keep employees engaged, or members of your team? This could even be, this is not even talking about like somebody who's managing a team. There could be teams that are just working together. How do you stay engaged in a team setting as a leader, whether you are officially the lead or not? And like what are some steps or tips around the engagement, aside from some of the things that you've already mentioned, which are really getting to know your team members? I think that's super important, being able to listen. What else is there that you can do?
Yeah, I think people need attention. So I have forever met with my team members one-on-one every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the years, some of my managers or some other leaders think that that's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. Because even if maybe the employee or maybe you don't have any real updates or you don't have anything on your mind, that's okay. Just touch base, right? Ask them, can I help you with anything? Do you have any questions? Is anything not clear? But give them that space and opportunity on a regular basis to share whatever's on their minds. And the time is on the calendar. And if it's on the calendar, you're going to prioritize it. If it's not on the calendar, you're going to keep thinking, oh yeah, I need to follow up on that. I need to meet with them. And then you never will. So put it on the calendar, meet with your team. If you only need 5 minutes, only meet for 5 minutes. Sometimes you need an hour though, for various things that are going on. Mm-hmm. So I think that like making them a priority on your calendar and having those meetings. It's also important to remember that we all have lives outside of work. Work is very important, but people have lives outside of work. And so you want to create an environment that they don't dread going to. I've always told my teams over the years, pay attention to how you feel on Sunday afternoon. And if you start to get sick to your stomach, if you start to have this feeling of dread, ask yourself, why is that? Why am I dreading Monday? I think Monday has such a bad name. Why aren't we as excited about Monday as we are about Friday? Yeah. If we're in the right job, if we have a good manager, if we have a good team, we can be. Maybe not as, but close. And, I just don't want to have an environment. I don't want to go to an environment myself that I'm dreading. And I certainly don't want team members to dread going to that environment. So I think it's important, and Gary knows all about this, creating fun in the workplace. And fun is different for every team. Every team is not the same. Every culture is not the same. Every dynamic is not the same. But again, ask your team, what do you want to do? How can we make this more fun? How can we make it, yes, we have work to do, but it doesn't have to be this overly serious, dreadful, boring place that you have to go to every day.
Yeah. Has there been, I think on the topic of of fun at work. And I know that companies are increasingly starting to prioritize fun because of how many workshops I see Gary working at different companies and whatnot. But there was a part in your book that talked about the culture of a company, and what if let's say you are bringing your unicorn leader your unicorn leader hat into a new company that may not have this culture that is used to infusing more fun and play as a way to enhance creativity, as a way to improve collaboration across teams. What would you suggest to somebody who's in that position that wants to kind of bring forth this aspect of fun into a culture that maybe has been a little bit more traditional or old school and might not look at that as, or be comfortable with that because it's just not been the way that they do things?
Yeah, I think it really does just depend on the company. Look, there's all sorts of variations. Some companies are just never going to be ready for fun. They're not going to accept it as necessary. And so I would say don't work there. That's me. I would never work there.
Yeah.
It's really important in any interview process, whether you're being interviewed or you're the one interviewing, to make sure to the best that you can that you do align with the level of fun or creativity that is encouraged or not at that company, because you're just not going to be happy if if they're telling you, oh well, we absolutely will not allow fill in the blank, and you think, oh, I can convince them, I can change their mind, just wait. Okay, maybe, but you're probably just going to find yourself beating your head against the wall. So really asking questions in an interview or when you're interviewing. And look, there are some individuals that aren't interested in really having fun or having any sort of play or silliness or anything at work. And that's okay. Those are not my people, but that's okay. They'll find a company or a firm or a workplace that's right for them. So it's just important to really be honest, about what is the company culture. And also, if you have a company maybe on the borderline or a team on the borderline, like they think they want to have fun, they're maybe not that quite sure how to go about it. Well, then, yes, maybe you can be that tipping point that gets them to have a little bit more fun and not be so serious. But in general, you just have to ask the questions like, how do you celebrate employees' birthdays? Or do you? How do you celebrate employee work anniversaries? Or do you? Have you ever celebrated National Have Fun at Work Day? Just there's so many questions you can ask. And if those things are important to you, you should ask them. One place I worked at, we used to have these huge Halloween decorating contests and costume contests, and it was fun. Many of us thought that was so fun. It was a great way to, bond and build teamwork and utilize your creativity. Some people didn't think it was so fun and they didn't participate. That's okay. Search out for things like that will help you be more excited about going to work if that's your thing.
Yeah. Gary, were you going to say something?
Just on that point, had a question for Anne. Like in your book, you talked about evolving, and I feel like, those leaders who, don't see fun and playfulness as an asset, are going to be left behind. However, you talk about the importance of having a growth mindset. Can you elaborate on that and how someone, that maybe are starting to have that awareness that, yeah, maybe, maybe I am behind the times, how they can start to embrace that and have that growth mindset.
Yes. Well, I do think a growth mindset is so important, because if you have a fixed mindset, then you think, this is it. This is, I can't learn anymore. My team can't learn anymore. We're putting ourselves in this box. It's always been this way. It's going to always be this way. And we're just going to stay right here in our comfortable box. And I'm like, so, polar opposite, and don't believe in that 100%. So I think a growth mindset is just, it goes to continuous learning, right? And self-awareness. And, oh, look, there's a new research finding that is out. Let me learn from that. Let me learn what people are finding about what motivates teams, or what employees actually want in a job. I mean, the research is out there. Several great companies are doing great research. So read it, learn from it, and adjust your approach. And I think that's about evolving. And I don't mean that just in, work or leadership. That is in every day of your life. We are constantly learning new information. So be curious and learn from it and adjust your approach. And I think you can help others be more successful, and you can be more successful and happy in your life, because you're not just trying to, again, stay in this box or force a square peg into a round hole. It's like, okay, there's a new data point, and I'm going to do something with this.
I love that. Awesome. I wanted to go back a little bit to just the kind of conversation about the culture, because I know that there are different ways. If you're actively looking for a job right now, there are different ways to be able to, sometimes you can see, what the job entails and the job description, and maybe how much it pays and what the requirements are. But, sometimes you'll get a tiny little blurb about the company and what they do. But sometimes it's hard to assess the culture without, in the interview process, asking about it, which is something that I always recommend to people as a interview question for the interviewer, to be able to explain what it's like, so that not just from a performance aspect of the work that you're doing, but actually the work environment, which I, because of my situations and what I've experienced, I really care about a good working environment. The only place that I can think about getting a sense of what the culture might be in a company is looking for their mission statement, which would just be easily going to their website, going to like the About Us tab, and hopefully it's there. Is there any other place that you feel, other than in the interview or the mission statement, that gives you a sense of what the culture might be like as somebody who might be looking for a job?
Yeah, definitely. I think, mission statements are great, but they're often just words that aren't translated into action.
Yes.
So I think two things come to mind. One is, in the interview process, the more people you can meet that are actually on that team and can give, feedback, I think the better off you are. People have different ideas about this. Some people say, why are you putting the candidate through 4 or 5 different interviews? I happen to believe that's really valuable, because the more people you can meet, or the different situations you're in, you're going to get a better feel for what that company or that team is really like. So I always love to include various team members in interviews, because then the candidate can determine, oh yes, I like these people. I've connected with everyone here, or, and they can also ask them questions that they may not feel comfortable asking me or the recruiting, the hiring manager. So it's just a really good way to get multiple perspectives. So I think that's number one. Number two, social media, it's a thing now. So go and look at that company's, LinkedIn. What are they posting? What are they talking about? What's important to them? Are they just talking about, oh, for the fourth straight quarter, we worked more overtime than any other company in the, United States. Okay, you may not want to go work there. But what are they saying that's important to them? So those are two areas I think you can get a pretty good idea for what that actual company culture is.
That's good to know. Awesome. So I also wanted to point out another part of your book that I thought was really awesome, which I think can be a struggle for managers. And it's your chapter on providing feedback. I know that sometimes, especially in situations where you may have an underperforming employee, or there might be some sort of conflict or some weird vibe that's going on with somebody that you're working with. How do you address those situations if you're noticing any tension, or maybe they are underperforming with those direct reports? Like, how do you give adequate feedback without disengaging them, or giving them that opportunity to grow, but then not like hoping that they don't like want to completely pull back because they perceive your feedback as something negative?
Yeah. So I think it all starts with, you have to build that foundation of trust. You have to have that foundation in place so that people truly believe, and you truly are, coming from a place of, I'm sharing this because I want you to be better. I'm sharing this because this is something you need to know. Not just, well, I know best and here's what I'm telling you you need to do. Right? So that's why one reason establishing that foundation of trust is so important, because then they can tell you things, and you can tell them things, and it's just a give and take. So I think establishing that trust, allowing them to feel like it's not a one-way street. It should not be, I'm the leader or the manager and I'm telling you how it is. No, it's a two-way street. And so then if you have that, then it is just easier for both parties to, number one, give the feedback, but also receive it. Mm-hmm. And so it just starts with being in a good place. Like, I'm telling you this because I want you to be the best that you can be, not because, you're getting on my nerves or I don't like it that way, but because this is what I see and what I experience. So great book, Radical Candor. My teams over the years, we have studied this book, talked about this book and these techniques and this approach, because it really is about caring and being very candid and open and honest. I try to tell my team members, if you're sitting in a meeting and somebody says something or does something and you've just got this sick feeling in your stomach and you think, no, what are we doing? Say something, just say it, right? In a positive, caring, supportive way, of course, that's key. But if you just keep thinking, oh, they're driving me crazy, or that's the wrong way to do it, or why are you doing it that way? That makes no sense. Say something. People don't know, and they want to be supported and helped and encouraged. So if you look at feedback from that perspective and not just, I'm going to tell you because I know better, I think it's easier for everyone. Yeah. And more effective.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you. So we've spent a lot of time so far kind of talking about, leadership in the workplace. And I want to, for people who are watching this that maybe might be like, well, I have a career, but I don't manage a team, or, I might work in teams, but, I don't know, some of this stuff that we're talking about doesn't necessarily apply. the second half of this conversation is gonna kind of speak to those people, because obviously Gary, myself, and Rebecca, we all are kind of working for ourselves. We've got different things going on at the same time, maybe working for other people in some respects. Or there might be people who, are stay-at-home parents that are like, how does this conversation apply to me? And, I always think about the fact that leadership, while it is predominantly mentioned when we're talking in the career space, leadership still shows up in other areas of your life, right? For that stay-at-home mom who is running the household, that is still a very hard job, where you have to manage and you have to lead the family out of chaos into order. Or if you are a solopreneur, you still have to show up as a leader to your clients, to the people who you are interacting with, anybody you collaborate with. And so leadership doesn't just show up as somebody who is managing teams. You agree with this, right? And so I want to kind of shift gears and try to focus on, how do we channel this unicorn leader, no matter what roles we play, so that we can be the best that we can be. And, one of the things that your tagline on your book is, find your passion, achieve your goals, realize your potential. And this applies to everybody. We all have the ability to work towards realizing that potential. And I know that you said earlier that, leadership it always starts with you. And so how can we channel this inner unicorn, or this unicorn leader, according to Anne?
Yeah, well, I think
we all want unicorns on our
yes, like you said, it really does start with you, and that is first understanding yourself. I think one of my chapters in the book is know yourself, and that takes time and intentional efforts. And it's really about understanding, what are my values, what are my strengths, what do I like to do, what am I good at, what have people said over the years that I'm really good at, who do I admire, anyway, like, who are you? And so many people haven't taken the time to answer that question. And I think whether you lead others or yourself or your household or whatever, you've got to know who you are. Otherwise, what do you do with that? Yeah. And so I think taking some assessments, spending time with yourself, by yourself, and really doing things like journaling, or just sitting in silence and giving the universe a moment to communicate with you, and for your thoughts to take hold of what do I want to do and who am I? I think that's the first step. It's like, who are you? Then once you do that, you can begin to think, okay, now I know who I am, how I'm made, how I'm wired, what makes me unique. What do I want to do? I mean, it could be multiple things, right? But it's just all about intentionality. We have to take intentional steps. Yes, sometimes we stumble across things, friends, opportunities, whatever. But I think 9 times out of 10, we stumble across things because we've done the work, and we end up where we need to go. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And so, a lot of what you share, and I love how aligned, some of the action steps that you take in, or that you recommend in your book, is like identifying your values. You had talked about how leadership is one of your top values in the book, and how that shows up for you, but making sure that you understand that, what drives you, and how that might show up or how that mixes when you are working in a team, right? Understanding what values are. And we talk about values all the time in the ASC. And I always tell people that when you identify your values, and if we were all in a room, all of the ASC people, especially at the annual planning retreat, we went around and talked about our top values, there's always going to be some sort of connection to somebody else in the room. And that's what kind of draws you there. So would you say that I'm going to go back to the whole manager piece in a second, but as you're building a team, or as you're, leading your family, or whatever that is, how important are the values? How important is it that the values are aligned on a team? And what do you do if they're not?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important that the values are aligned. And that's something that you can explore in an interview or in your conversations, right? Because if a company has values that you do not support, I mean, you don't have to have the exact same values, of course, but you have to have a response like, yes, I believe that's important, I always want to know what the values are of where I'm going to work, or what, group I'm going to be associated with. So I can determine, is this how I want to spend my time? Is this how I want to spend my life? And a few years ago, my family and I went through a values exercise, and we, talked about what our values are. And they're now on a vision board as you walk through the garage, or through the door out to the garage. There's our family values.
I love that.
And I think that was fun. My kids didn't think it was all that fun, but it was fun for me to get feedback from them. Like, what, do you think is important about our family, or to our family? And what does that look like? So I think values is a topic, and there are values exercises that you can do, whatever entity you're talking to or dealing with. But yes, if your values don't align, you're going to start getting sick on Sunday. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to start dreading it, and you're going to not reach your potential because you're simply just not on the same page.
Yeah. And I love that, when you think about it from the aspect of the example that you shared about, doing this exercise with your family. And yeah, maybe, my husband says, like, I don't know about your authenticity value, but like fun and accomplishment, like I'm spot on with that. But coming together as a team, as your family, and highlighting the values that are most important to you, those are the things that can help create that better cohesion. So even though it's not a work team, your family is still a team unit, and being able to identify, like, this is what we prioritize as a group. It's,
Yes.
we might all have individual, different ones here, but here are the ones that overlap for all of us. It's also a good way, if your kids are younger, a way to kind of instill those values and let your kids understand that, the reason that I'm making these decisions is because I prioritize this value. And so, like a value-based leadership is definitely something that I'm, 100% on board with, and it allows you to connect. So I love that. And I forgot what the other thing was that I was going to say. So I'm going to put myself on hold and let Gary chime in. Oh, you're muted.
To the point that you were talking earlier about, that led up, to values is, the fact that, people have this inflection point, or they're at a crossroads where they're like, oh, wow, I don't like the situation that I'm in. I really liked what you were talking about, towards the end of your book, in the section on courage, where you were talking about destiny and how, you can pave, your own way, create your own destiny. Do you mind, talking about some of those steps, that people, especially if they're getting to Sundays and they're not, they're dreading Mondays, and they want to start to change some of the things?
Yes. Yes. And I love that section because, having courage is not easy. And it's every day, sometimes an ongoing reminder, like you can do it, just do it. And some of the things that I talked about was, oftentimes we know what we need to do. And we're like, oh, I can't do that, or the time's not right, or what would my mother think, or what would my friends think? No, if you truly know what to do, just do it. But that is scary. It's very scary. So you just, got to somehow through other things like visualization, meditation, silence, give yourself the opportunity to find the courage. And, I've had a saying for quite some time, which is life is short. Everybody has that saying, right? It's not my saying, but I embrace that. And I used to, pre-COVID, throw life's too short parties. And I would basically invite any and all of my friends, people I worked with, like a whole variety of people. And whoever showed up, it was great. It was not very prescribed. But I really think we have to remember that life is short. And you don't want to wake up 10 years from now and say, oh, well, I wish I would have done that. No, do it. Just do it. And oftentimes we spend way too much time thinking about what other people will think, right? Not even if we already know, like I used in a previous example, that, oh, I know how she will feel about that. But then we think, what will they think about that? Oh my goodness, what will they think? Who cares? And so I just encourage, more often than not, we should respond to ourselves, well, what will they think? Who cares? And I have, I don't know if this is good parenting or poor parenting. Time will tell. But, I tell my kids all the time, no, you don't have to do anything, because so often I hear my kids say, well, I have to do this, or I don't want to do this. But no, you don't have to do anything. Now, there are consequences if you don't, but I just want them to realize we have a choice. We have a choice. And yes, sometimes it's very scary. It's terrifying, but you have a choice. And so in courage, I do often visualize most of us, and I've been there, I get there at times. We're going down this river of life. We're just going, we're going. And sometimes, most of our lives, unfortunately, sometimes all of our lives, we go, well, this is my river. This is, I don't know how I ended up on this river, but I don't have a choice. No, you need to take your arm or a stick, or I don't know, brute force, and stop yourself and get off that boat and find another river, find another boat. I don't know, but it's hard. It's really hard sometimes to change your course of the river, but it can be done with courage, I think.
And that brings me, that's a great segue to my next question on those same lines of, you really express the importance of having the right sort of attitude, to be able to get the things that you want and to become that unicorn leader. Do you have any sort of tips and pointers if someone is, having that self-awareness and realizing that in whatever the situation is, maybe their attitude needs some adjusting? How can we do that? And yeah, what advice you have for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think oftentimes we have a poor attitude because we've let ourselves reach the point of burnout. And so anytime you reach that point, for those of you who have, you find yourself, oh, you're more cynical, you're more pessimistic, you're just more negative in general. So the first part, I think, really starts with take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, and don't let yourself get to that point of exhaustion or burnout, and that goes back to check in with yourself. Are you living your values? Are you aligned with wherever you're working or whomever you're surrounding yourself with? And then have you pushed yourself to a point of bad attitude? And so sometimes a way to get back into the positive attitude, it sounds super simple, but oftentimes we forget to do it. Sleep, drink your water, eat good food, exercise, spend time in silence, in meditation, in, really making sure your mental, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual is in the best shape it can be. And then you'll find you're way more positive.
Rebecca says 100,000 million trillion billion percent. And it's crazy too, because you think about how leadership is that concept that constantly comes up when you're thinking about work. But I think, and I myself included, prior to being on this journey that I've been on for the last almost 8 years, is just the importance of taking care of yourself outside, in order to be a better leader, whether it's at home with, in your, intimate relationships, or in your friendships, or at work. You have to, in order to have that good energy and radiate that, because it's all contagious, right? Like if you come to work or you show up and you have a bad attitude or you're cranky, you put that energy on anybody that comes in contact with you, and it affects you, right? It's like you have road rage because you're mad because you've got 4 hours of sleep the night before, and you're honking at this person, and you're stressing out somebody who's just like trying to get from another point. You just don't know how that energy impacts everybody and everything around you. And so we tend to forget about some of those things like health and wellness, and just making sure that we are taking care of ourselves, but how much of an impact that can have to things like leadership. And so, you just talk about all of that stuff, very much in the book. And obviously we have had a lot of discussions over the last couple of years about how important that is. And sometimes it can be hard to prioritize when you are an ambitious, driven person. And so to that, and sometimes like we have advice on how to do this, and sometimes it's even hard and challenging for us to prioritize it. So what advice would you have for somebody who's listening to this right now that is, maybe reaching that point of burnout, is trying to lead teams or lead their family or just be a leader, period? Do you have any words of wisdom on how to make that more of a priority?
Yeah, I think one thing I've struggled with is saying no more often. And, for most of my career, I believe in the power of yes, right? I do. I used to have reminder at my office that said, be a yes in a sea of no. And that I really believe that's positivity, right? Yes, we can do this. Yes, we will figure it out. Yes, this is going to be great. Yes, I will take on that scary assignment because I believe I can do it. But when you say yes to everything, then you're not going to be your best at any of that. And that is, has been one of my problems over the years, is because I do get excited and I want to do things and I want to help people and I want to, be a part of that. But that's oftentimes what leads to burnout. And so just having the self-awareness to be honest and say, no, I've taken on too much. Now I need to start saying no to almost everything. And so that's why I think values who you are and what you want to do. Whatever your goal is for the year, if you assess what you're doing on a daily basis or a weekly basis and it's not getting you closer to that goal, you need to stop it. And so you're sometimes going to hurt people's feelings who invite you to do something. No, I'm not doing that. I love you, but I'm not going to do that. And I think that's okay. But I think there's a lot of power in just saying no and not overcommitting so that you're better able to have the success that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think too, to that note, if there's somebody who's watching this that is like noticing that they're like, oh, I'm on the edge of burnout, but like there's so many good nuggets like from this hour-long chat that I just like I want to implement it all. Now you have a whole bunch of different steps summarized in like all the different things that somebody could do. What would be like the one thing if they're like, okay, I need to move slow, I need to still prioritize myself, what would be the one thing that you would suggest, the one action step that you would suggest that they do first out of all the good, awesome things we talked about today?
Well, I think similar, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Identify what your values are. If you haven't done that, definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's where you have to start, because if you can't articulate what's important to you, I don't know how you're going to make sure you're on the right river or the right path, or how you will even begin your journey.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I think when it comes to values, what I was going to say earlier is, values are very much driven by your emotions and how you feel too. And so if you're having trouble trying to identify, yes, there's values exercises that you can Google and whatnot, but just even watching and being aware of when something lights you up versus something gives you resistance or makes you upset. Like identify those things, because there's a value hidden in that. Like I know that when I have to do a grueling, boring task and I'm resisting with all my might, I know it's because it's not fun and I value fun. And so in order to figure out how to do that thing that I am choosing to still do, even though it's painful, is how can I look at that from a lens of fun, right? Take the glasses off and have a great time. Or if I'm doing something that just feels like it's never there's no end game, it's because it's not honoring my value of accomplishment. Like I want to feel like I've finished something. And so really thinking about that from that perspective is an easy way to start. If you're like, I don't have time to do a worksheet, or I don't have time to sit there and do an activity, just pay attention to your emotions, because your values are hiding in there.
Right? Yeah, definitely. I, from time to time, have done an audit of my time. And so I look at, the meetings I was in or where I was over the past week or month. And I, like you're saying, I think about, how did I feel for that meeting or that activity? Was I looking forward to it? Was I dreading it? How did it go? And then you just try to avoid those activities as much as possible.
Yeah, I love it. And Terry in the chat at some point was also saying the best opportunities come from being yourself, which, again, lives out that whole ability to, you're not trying to be somebody else. That authenticity factor is great. So yeah, we're almost done with our hour, but this was an amazing conversation. I hope that for those of you who are watching, you really got some value out of this conversation. Thank you so much, Anne, for hopping on with us. And I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to look at this amazing book and look at this beautiful woman at the front. Unicorn Leadership. You can buy it on Amazon. Is that where you prefer people to buy, or is it all on all
That's
other
the easiest, right?
Yes, absolutely. And who would you say this book would be best suited for to read? I mean, it is applicable to everyone, but like, is there anybody who you're like, if you are this person, you definitely need to pick this up right now?
If you are a human on the planet Earth, this is the book for you.
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Anne. And I know Rebecca has kind of just been hanging out, supporting in the background. I don't know if she has any other questions or anything that she wants to add. She's like, no.
Well, no, not totally, but I love it. And then I just agree coming from my background. And although I did have a cubicle job for like a year and a half of my life and had management, it still applies even in like the yoga studio world. And, I appreciate your approach, because I do feel like you said, every human can relate no matter what work experience they've had or just life experience. And I do believe we all can be leaders, and it's so important. So yes, cheers to everything you said, I suppose. Yeah, it was great.
Woohoo.
Thank you.
Awesome. And as we say goodbye, again, if you are watching this and you have no idea what the ASC stands for, it's the Accountability Success Circle. We are a team of, and a group of, people who are just, so focused on living our best lives, really paying attention to the quality of our lives, and really just accomplishing the goals that light us up in the most fun way. So if you really want to, if you're just curious and want to come check us out, accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We've got free trials. Come hang out with us. We are a fun global community, and we'll see you there. And if you are in the ASC, if you're either watching this on the replay or live, Terry, thanks for joining us live, and anybody else that is hiding and not saying anything. But thank you guys all for being here. And next month, we will move to the topic of fun, the focus of fun. Gary's going to lead that, and we'll post that webinar, those details very, very soon. So we'll see you next month. Thank you so much, Anne, for being here. And
Yes, thank you, Anne.
Thank
see you guys
you.
next time.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'm stopping it. And